Um, are there any, Madam Librarian, could you open question time?
Yeah, the time for questions is now open.
Okay, excellent. So this is just an opportunity for people to ask us questions. You can ask using the QA function or in the chat. You can ask us about, oh, what does the core sec do, or what does the librarian do, or how our days are going. Please, feel free to ask any question you'd like.
Sorry, did you call me? I didn't hear.
Wait, what? No, I haven't called on you, Sean. Okay, Madam Librarian.
The time for questions is now closed.
Excellent. Mr. Record Secretary, are there any reports to be read?
There are no reports to be read.
Are there any reports, are there any motions on notice?
There are no motions on notice.
Are there any motions not on notice?
There are no motions not on notice.
Excellent. And then finally, back to Madam Treasurer, are there any fines?
There are no fines.
God, that's so shocking. Cool. Without further ado, I'd like to cede the floor back to the chair.
I call this house adjourned.
Ooh, excellent. And now I'd like to, I'm chairing this evening, so I'd like to call this house to order. And I'd now like to call upon, sorry, this is actually the public business part of the evening now. We're actually heading into the debate. I know the suspense is probably killing you all, but yeah, I'd call this house to order. And I'd now like to call upon the record secretary to read the minutes of the last public business meeting.
Apologies, this isn't well prepared because, and thank God you can't smell it through the Zoom, but I've been drinking. For me, it's a necessary coping mechanism. I see some of you here have your drinks as well. Quite frankly, I'm exhausted. I was awake all night till I passed out from exhaustion at about 11 o'clock this morning. I know I'm obviously not the only one. I'm sure there are many among those of you watching this debate that were kept awake, tossing and turning because Mars is in retrograde and you too are in Aries. But speaking of other spooky things, it was Halloween last weekend. And although this one was fairly tame in comparison to last year when I saw a Teletubby and a naughty schoolgirl with their faces mashed together, this year I was curled up on the couch in a minion costume watching reruns of Scooby-Doo. And that got me thinking, Scooby-Doo is actually an educational masterpiece. The light that it sheds on the dark corners of society and the deep mysteries that many of us hold. We're promised these like spooky supernatural beings, and it always turns out to be a disgruntled employee. So clearly, I think what we're meant to take away from that is there's no such thing as ghosts, and join a union. That is, as long as you're not American, because if Trump wins again, unions will probably go the same way as healthcare, Roe v. Wade, and Lindsay Lohan's career. Now, at the same time, things are looking up for Joe. In fact, Trump has been putting up defensive perimeters around the White House. It only took 4 years, but he's finally got his wall. Now, I'm actually not sure if it's meant to keep the protesters out or him inside, because considering he ran the country the way he ran his businesses into the ground, I'm honestly not terribly shocked. I wouldn't be terribly shocked to see Biden really turn this around tonight. I really hope it does. This is usually meant to be funny, but like I said, I'm way past the point of even being able to conceptualize what humor is. So, thank you.
Excellent. And are there any objections to my signing these minutes as a true and accurate account of the last public business meeting? No, then I shall duly sign. Okay, cool. Okay, and now I'd like to basically run through the speaking orders for this evening. So for anyone who's new to our chamber debates, speeches will be 7 minutes in length, with the first and last minute protected. What are they protected from? They're protected from points of information, or POIs. So basically, a POI is just an opportunity for anyone on the opposing bench or in the audience to ask a question of the speaker. You may offer the POI after the first minute, and then you can't offer them in the last minute. And then just for how you offer a POI, you can offer a POI using the Q&A function, or by typing into the chat POI. And then we can basically like add you to the panel, and then you can ask verbally the POI, which will be really cool because technology, it's great. And then the vote to whether to carry the motion will be taking place over Zoom. And yeah, I think that is all the standing orders for this evening. And without further ado, the question for the House is, this House welcomes the rise of astrology. And I'd now like to call upon Eva O'Beirne to propose the motion to the House.
Thank you, Breed. So here we are. I'd like to think that I made this happen, even though I'm slightly joking when I say that. I do like to think I have some form of influence with how much I talk about star signs. There's a lot I could say about welcoming the rise of astrology, and it's no secret that I am a fan of this subject, and I'm sure many of you are expecting me to go on a rant about how astrology is a guide to life, it'll help you avoid the worst people, Trump is a Gemini, and in all honesty, I was tempted to make that speech, and I was tempted to make this all very superficial and to actually show people that I don't care about their opinions. But as a Libra, I do care so very much, and I need you to validate me. As a person in general, I am very insecure, and I hope that is very obvious to the audience tonight. I am very, very shy, and weirdly enough, this is why I welcome the rise of astrology. So let me present to you my first point, conversation starters. Astrology is a topic people love to hate. We all know our sun sign. It's this piece of general knowledge that we unusually are gifted from a young age. At some point or another, we find out about our sun sign, and it's dependent on the day that we're born, obviously. And so we keep this information with us, and frankly, it is a useless piece of information, and that's coming from a professional astrologer. Your sun sign is a general vibe. It's very surface level. And that's what most astrological conversations are. They're completely surface level. They're had by people who have never heard of your ascendant, north or south node, and that's completely fine. It helps you get, honestly, if it helps you get your whole, you're welcome. Sun sign astrology first became popular in the 1930s, and it was then when people started to refer to their sun sign as a notable trait about themselves. Before this concept of knowing your sun sign, it was actually your descendant to which people refer to the most. And to those who don't know what a descendant is, it's your true self, your inner self, the person you are when you're alone. And why does this matter, you may ask? Why is an astrologer dismissing a pretty large part of astrology? Well, really, I'm just trying to point out that astrology is weirdly universal. It is something that connects all of us. It's a point in which we all agree on. It's a point that we all know of. And it's where my first kind of sad anecdote comes in. As I mentioned before, I'm very shy. I'm nervous by design, but weirdly for me, the conversations where I am the least anxious and most calm is when I'm discussing things that I love, and this happens to be astrology. And I would say I love astrology as much as I love history or mythology or English literature, different things that I do love and appreciate very much. I'm talking about a subject that people don't really realize is really complicated and takes years. And when I say I'm a professional astrologer, I don't have a full understanding of it. So it takes years to understand fully. It involves mathematics, theory, astronomy. It's not reading newspaper columns every weekend. I welcome the rise of astrology as it helps people gain more insight into the universe, and not in a, oh my God, he's such a Scorpio and that's why he's not texting me back kind of way. No, I think it encourages people to look into mythology, history, astronomy. Astrology is not a predestined type of belief. I would never impose that on someone. It's merely a spiritual guide, something that's in the place of religion for most Zoomers and millennials, and you can take it as seriously as you want to take it. So on to my second point. I'm going to address the people who really need astrology. Straight men. No, and I know they don't, but they could actually learn a lot from it though. I want to talk about the obvious misogyny that exists when people start making fun of astrology or any kind of pseudoscience. You know, like, have you ever heard of the Salem witch trials? Kind of, same vibe. So I've been into astrology for most of my adult life. And it's only become a major interest of mine about 3 years ago. So I was around fifth year of secondary school, or 17 for people who aren't Irish. So for 2 whole years in school, I put up with mainly men teasing me about this interest. And I'm aware that some people in school, or some people in college, have said similar things. I do see you. And really, I couldn't understand why. You know, it's like, why can't women take enjoyment out of simple activities? It's so strangely reminiscent of get back in the kitchen and make me a sandwich mentality. It's like, who said that you could like the stars? Who said that you could look up there and dream a little bit? And I don't think straight men are comfortable with letting women have fun. So they start saying things like, oh, it's stupid, oh, it's annoying. And meanwhile, they're going to stay up until 4 a.m. to watch a homophobic, racist MMA fighter dance around a cage for 5 seconds. In my mind, that's pure fantasy. So what I'm really saying is that we all have our own individual interests, and we all have things that make us happy. But according to these men, no, I shouldn't like this. And the question I had to all this whole situation, and I'm 17 years old and I'm making this choice. Well, if I do stop talking about it, will they become nicer people to me? No. Does astrology make me happy? Yes. Am I currently getting paid to be an astrologer right now at the age of 20? Yes. So I'm not here to make you happy, and I'm not here to make anyone happy. I read my silly little star charts, and I check the silly little planets, and I cross-reference them according to a system that's been there for thousands of years. It's fun, it's comforting, and it doesn't hurt anybody. And I can see their point, though. I do, because I think I'm quite empathetic as a person. I can see that they might think I fully bought into astrology, and I understand from the outside the uneducated about astrology side, how that could come across as weird. And sometimes, yeah, I'm very wary about dating a Cancer or a Libra again. And I'm not going to attack you based on the day that you were born. I do think it's funny, though, how a lot of men, you know, like the football Twitter types, they will attack you based on your appearance, interests, sexual preferences, and ethnicity. Bit weird, in my opinion. Let the women enjoy the stars. But what does actually hurt people at the end of the day? It's words. And I was never brave enough to stand up to these people who were so small-minded. They said a lot of things, and things that were a lot worse than just making fun of my star charts. But astrology is getting far more popular now. It's weird getting random DMs with people who have questions about it, people who I don't really talk to, but are really interested and excited. Really, the history of astrology and the Greek/Roman mythology behind the planets is a great place to start if you are wondering and are interested in getting into it. I think astrology gives off main character energy. And when I was writing the speech, I really needed a confidence boost. So that's why I put that in. Anyways, what I wanted to say was astrology is economics for hot people. And it doesn't hurt anyone. Well, maybe Geminis a little bit, but I do have a soft spot for them, so I'm sure they'll get over it. I hope that you've all learned something about astrology through this speech, or just simply be kind. You never know who needs it. Thank you very much for listening.
Woo. We thank we thank Eva for her wonderful speech, and I now like to call upon Cillian Gartlan to oppose the motion to the House.
Hi. So I'd like to open by saying I have no affiliation with football, Twitter, or any of that kind of thing, and I also strongly dislike it. So I'm gonna open with a definition. So astrology is the belief that the alignment of the stars and planets affects every individual's mood, personality, and environment depending on when they are born. Thank you, Google. So in summary, astrology is the belief that the entire universe revolves around us humans. What a selfish belief system. I don't think selfishness and lack of responsibility is something worth celebrating or welcoming, and I hope this House will agree. The 16-year-old edgy atheist in me was going to make this an argument about religion and belief in general, but thankfully I've matured beyond that. So don't worry, His committee, you won't need to cancel this speech. I'm no Richard Dawkins. But on religion, at least most major belief systems, the world religions, are vague enough not to claim direct influence over your life choices. Have you heard a Christian blame their bad mood or cruelty on God? Yeah, sorry I blanked you when I was with my new friends, but that was God's plan, I guess? No, that would sound ridiculous. Yet we're meant to accept it when someone blames their behavior on the direction a planet is heading. You didn't forget to wish me happy birthday because Mercury was in retrograde, Jessica. There's no conceivable way that the opposing direction of Mercury in comparison to Earth altered your memory or your perception of time itself. Stay out of my life, Jessica. So I was talking about astrology. Yeah. So it's all just a bit of fun, though, isn't it? That's what people keep telling me anyway. Yet when I tell people that my imaginary flatmate predicts my future, they look at me like I'm crazy. I'll have you know that Jeremy actually predicted that you'd all look at me like that. So what makes astrology more fun? If your idea of fun is reading vague statements about your future, just eat some fortune cookies and get on with it. There's no need to make it a personality trait. So is it the fact that people like feeling like they belong to a particular group of people who are aligned to the stars in the same way as they are? Well, I think I speak for all Capricorns when I say that we are not sheep, or rams for that matter. We all think individual thoughts and have individual lives and decisions. I can't speak for all Capricorns, of course, because that would be ridiculous. And not all Virgos would treat me like you did, Jessica. If you're looking for a sense of belonging, there are much easier ways to go about this. You could, for example, make some friends by spending your free time, speaking at a debate that nobody cares about because a global superpower is in the middle of a constitutional crisis. And staying on this somber note, 2 weeks ago, a hero of mine named James Randi died. He was a magician and dedicated most of his life to skepticism. In fact, he was one of the biggest figures in the skeptic movement. He co-founded the Committee for Skeptical Inquiry and made many television appearances investigating people's claims to hold certain powers or looking into the so-called supernatural events with a scientific approach. So naturally, thinking of him, I had to do some Googling and see if he ever said anything about astrology. And all I found was a very short YouTube clip where he went into a classroom and he gave every student in there a printout of a description of their personality based on their star sign. He then asked the students to rate on a scale of 1 to 5 how accurate they thought the description was. Most of them rated it very highly, about 4 or 5 out of 5. And then they were told to swap their sheet with their neighbor, and surprise, surprise, all the sheets said the exact same thing. And this tendency to give a high accuracy rating to a vague statement about yourself is called the Barnum Effect, interestingly enough. I think this vague nature of astrology is what annoys me about it the most. It's not because it's vague, but it's because people believe it's specific and personal, and that's the aim of it. Again, I don't have this problem with other belief systems. Priests may give vague advice, but at least they don't pretend that advice is specifically aimed at you. It's supposed to be general. It doesn't have a fake specificity about it. Jesus supposedly said things like, love your neighbor, not, your life is not perfect at the moment, but you can rely on friends to help you. Now, I do know that astrology goes beyond the classic trope of horoscopes, and people can have sun signs, moon signs, etc. But at least the horoscope side can have some entertainment value if you're one of those people who's particularly vulnerable to the Barnum Effect. The other stuff is just astronomy done badly. It's okay, art students. You're allowed to be interested in planets and their movements without turning to pseudoscience. Just admit it. You wish you studied something worthwhile like astrophysics or any other STEM subject for that matter. So why is it that you're a nerd if you care about real things, and you're cool if you care about a version of those things that's sprinkled with some grade A bullshit and a side of wine and cheese? The rise of astrology is the rise of selfishness. The ability to cast blame on a galactic event sounds crazy enough that nobody will ask you to explain yourself. That's selfish. The desire to express interest in the cosmos without having your hipster card taken away, that's selfish. Convincing people that it's just for fun when it has no basis in reality and is in its own way contributing to a culture of ignorance and build your own facts, again, that's selfish. But there is hope. Thankfully, faith in supernatural forces is largely in decline around the world, and when astrology stops being trendy, it will suffer the same fate as low-waisted jeans. It will vanish, and we will strive to forget it forever. The real universe is fascinating enough as it is, and we do have our place in it. When more people realize that, they might not feel the need to cling to these lies anymore. And I do have some closing advice for the proposition. Accept something that you cannot change, and you will feel better. And yes, that wisdom was from a fortune cookie. Thank you.
We thank the speaker for his fine speech. And now I'd like to call upon Nathan O'Beirne to propose the motion to the House. But before you do, Nathan, this is your first time speaking in the virtual chamber, but also chamber. And that means that you have maiden's rights, which basically means no one can POI you. However, if you waive your maiden's rights, that means that essentially like the panel will applause, it's going to be great, and it's a confidence boost for you. So would you like to waive your maiden's rights?
Yeah, sure, why not? Go for it.
Amazing. Woo! Woo!
I'm a Pisces, this is a big move.
It's usually a lot more impressive when it's like a chamber of people applauding you, but
okay.
Good luck.
Okay, so I'll start then. So for those of you who decide to tune into a nice chill debate about the stars and the various reasons why they do not in fact explain why your dad is constantly disappointed, i.e. him being a Taurus, and definitely not the fact that you think medievalism is an employable field and also you kind of suck at sports. I'm sorry, this will inevitably not be that nice chill foray into the marketplace of ideas, which you aren't aware are on fire already. So let's continue down this path a little bit. Why, after 11 hours of doom viewing the New York Times, and if you're like myself, weeks of refreshing 538, for the most up-to-date take that your favorite khaki pants centrist maths graduate that MSNBC has decided to give a six-figure salary has on the horoscope of Western democracy polls, and the likelihood of your favorite geriatric receiving unbelievable power, I think we should be honest with ourselves in the face of this. Election polls are just astrology for nerds. And if we can buy into that, I want to talk about what else we can believe in. And let's talk about doom as well. I want to talk about what my mornings for the past 3 years have looked like and why things are improving. I mean, they're not, but I'm currently managing a little better. I'm a Pisces, which is an important point to make early on. So as I'm sure you can all tell by having met any of us, we get overwhelmed like it's an Olympic sport. But aren't we all a little overwhelmed right now? I'm sure you may be asking this, and of course, that'd be a very fair point. Yes, we are all a little overwhelmed. But the planets say this adds up, and my FOMO is abated for a moment when CoStar reminds me that I'm pressured in all 6 categories that it calculates in one day, which I think is quite impressive. But my mornings have changed. I used to wake up like every other 20-something fearing the future of the planet. Open my phone, check the news, be a little disappointed when you find out AOC does the same thing but uses Safari, which is just inherently grim, and take in every terrible bit of news that would have inevitably haunted me for the rest of the day. I'd made a hobby out of ruining my day as quick as humanly possible. Something changed recently though. I've accepted that this is a little toxic. 8 months ago, I downloaded CoStar. At first I thought this is dumb. I mean, what does let the flowers of your unconscious blossom beneath the sun of conscious awareness mean? I don't particularly enjoy philosophy. I think the 18th century was regrettable. So this was a step in a strange direction for me. Infusing into my mornings, something between genuine, I'm 14 and this is deep content, and just cyberbullying from this weird star hop. Yes, CoStar, I'm aware Mercury is in retrograde. Apologies if you think I'm feeling a bit less understanding. But I wake up, I check my silly little star app, and for a moment I'm consumed in the complexity of myself, and oh God, I think I'm beginning to get that quote. I'm aware that no, I am understanding. I'm aware that I have an unreasonable amount of empathy and patience for people. I'll absolutely let a stranger tell me their problems for hours on end because I like to listen. I wake up and I realize that despite the fact the world is on fire, I'm doing my best to put out the small ones. And so, CoStar never needed to tell me the future. It never needed to tell me something I believed in. Sure, maybe I'm fine with it lying to me. When it comes to content I'd like to fact check in the mornings, I find myself getting a net positive from enjoying the absurd and unhinged takes this app has thrown at me, and I'll laugh at them every now and then, and that is a better way of waking up. I look forward to it. When it tells me I need to be more organized and I tidy and make my bed, I remember that I'm doing this not because some morally repugnant Canadian pseudo-intellectual taught you nothing by the benefits of making your bed, and now you have a horribly uncomfortable association with the task. I now do that because the stars have asked it of me. I want to talk about how astrology has allowed me to be more vulnerable and honest with who I am as a person, and how I feel there's a large amount of value in that. Why put an obstacle in front of a man that who, through years of growing up around toxic masculinity, has come in to a million obstacles to express those feelings? And so, lockdown has, for me at least, been an unending loop of downloading and deleting dating apps, to no end. And yes, take a shot every time you hear a dating app story at a HIS debate. But I've spoken to more people in this year than ever before. This was admittedly new to me. And it's sort of intimidating when the person on the other end, if at all interest, can't simply, just be some momentary thing. I've made my best friend on this planet from doing this, and it's been a wonderful thing to communicate and learn how to talk about these small little bits in your day-to-day life. I've grown so much as a person, and when the inevitable question comes up, do you believe in astrology and what your sign is? I know that the conversation that comes allows me to be earnest, to talk about the absurdity of the incorrect assumptions my chart makes, i.e. I'm not entrepreneurial or particularly confrontational, but I am creative and I am a warrior, and I genuinely just enjoy writing and journaling how I feel at home in nature. Small things that I get to give them that little bit of information about. I get an opportunity to genuinely understand the other person is, very deeply complex, and the conversation is always fun. I don't see any benefit in shutting someone down for wanting to explore the nuances in themselves in maybe what is admittedly a very roundabout way, but it's a concise way and it's a way that works. So, it's not that serious though. If someone tells me that they're an air sign, I'm not going to say we're not compatible. I am not committed to my convictions that much. I am not out building monoliths and worshipping the sun. I am looking for a small, innocent conversation about who I believe I am as a person, who this other person, the other end of that, is too. And if at the end of the day, I truly wanted to follow in the footsteps of the two most insufferably dull humans who have ever tried to discredit astrology, Newton and Mr. Neil, Pluto is fake deGrasse Tyson, I will have accepted once more there is less to life than imagination and myth. I will have given up for no real reason the exceptional circumstance that is, in the fact of the world coming to a slow end, I can look at a star and, like some illiterate pagan, know there is more in life than cold, harsh reality and fact. Thank you for listening. Neil deGrasse Tyson is a nerd, and I hope you guys will download CoStar.
Cool. Thank you so much for your fine speech. And I'd now like to call upon Orianna Davey to oppose the motion to the House. Orianna, you are also, this is also your first time speaking in chamber. So I'd like to ask the same question to you as I did Nathan. Would you like to waive your maiden's rights?
That is, no one else can get in my way, yes?
No one else can POI you.
Yeah. Sure. I won't see the chat anyway, so I will waive them.
Yeah, really doesn't matter. You can ignore all the POIs anyway.
That's what was going to happen.
Amazing. Woo!
Thank you. So I'm continuing the argument for the opposition, and the way I'd like to take this is just by discussing my personal problem with the way astrology is rising. And that as a result of that, I don't feel it can be welcomed, and this House should oppose the motion. The current way that astrology is rising has moved so far, in my opinion, from astrology and its original sentiment, and now moves to exploit people and people's natural desire for answers. As members of the proposition will rightly tell you, astrology is an ancient practice. Western astrology comes from Babylonia and Egypt in origin and was merged, it's believed, through the conquests of Alexander the Great. And Chinese and Indian astrology also takes its own little path, slightly different, it's believed, from Western Mediterranean astrology. And it's this study of the constellations of the stars and their course across the sky. And can this be related to humanity? And can we gain insight of humankind and our surroundings and our position within this world and this universe from these constellations? And it's about time and just trying to understand who we are and where we are in a confusing world. And astrology, as a result of that, is linked with many, many cultures and belief systems and has influenced our history and culture and lifestyle for millennia and probably long time to come. However, the rise of astrology, the course that it's taking now, I feel deviates from those principles and ideas. It doesn't just provide guidance to communities anymore. And astrology, the trajectory it's following, has morphed into a money-making machine that exploits people and their search for answers. Currently, the average person who tends to be interested in astrology and follows it and keeps up with it on a regular basis is either a woman or someone in the LGBTQ plus community in their mid-20s. And I suppose the question of that is then why? Which I would say, you know, there's this decline in religion. As the major world religions move into decline, people, especially in Europe and America, move away from their Christian beliefs into agnostic, atheistic belief, sometimes look to other places for guidance and a community, which they would have had in the church, because many people who believe in astrology will equally say they believe fully in science. They don't see that there is no separation in their mind. You can believe in two. And like what the proposition has both vocalized, is it gives this incredible community. So with the decline of religion, of course, you search for guidance and community elsewhere. And as well as that, we live, especially this week, in horrible times with, you know, economic disasters, political unrest, as well as social unrest. And you want a search for reason. Of course, you want to search for reason. And astrology can be a lovely and comfortable place to find that. And being young as well in this time, like, let's not remember this demographic is people in their 20s. You know, you're trying to like get to grips with being an adult, feel at home, feel grounded, and, you know, search for reason in your life as it just gets started. But this brings me to my first point, which was actually discussed by opening proposition Eva so beautifully, which is it is gendered. She said she gets so much stuff back from especially cis men, and they're violently opposed to the idea of astrology. And I suppose I would say to that, well, then it's marketed towards women and those in the LGBTQ plus community. And I was talking to someone earlier and they said, oh no, it's not marketed to them. It's not marketed to women in the LGBTQ plus community. It's an escape from society that holds them, you know, that can hold them in second place and put them in different positions. You escape from that in this accepting community that is astrology. But that doesn't really answer the question. In fact, I would say that the current way astrology is rising is affected by capitalism and the capitalist patriarchy, and thus you're not escaping from it, you're still stuck under it. Why can't everybody enjoy and be part of astrology? Why are men so opposed to it? Well, toxic masculinity, but that's, you know, as a result of the patriarchy as well, but we'll get into that. It's packaged up and sold back to women and members of the LGBTQ plus community. It said, okay, there's this gap in the market. People are looking for reason, looking for solutions, looking for somewhere to feel at home and belong. And that's a really good thing. We can exploit this. We can make tons of money from this. It's like, you know, expensive razors and special women's pens that are sold at higher prices to women because for some reason we'll pay for them, because razors need to be pink and so do pens. And you can charge them at a higher price for this commodity that has become astrology. For example, last year, the industry brought in $44 million in revenue. And that's just from the top 10 astrology applications alone in the USA. And that is up from 7.7 million in revenue in 2016. And, you know, you can equally say, well, they could be free. You can just download one of these apps, but often they'll come with in-app purchases. So you're forced to spend money on what should be something that you can divine for free because you're looking for community and security and advice and counsel and guidance in difficult times. You shouldn't have to pay for that. How does that contribute to a positive rise in astrology? It's just become another money-making ploy, a machine of cultural movement to get people involved and get people enjoying it. And as well as that, then that separates people because some people can't afford to spend money on their spiritual health. It's become a gentrified, you know, thing to enjoy. You can't technically afford to spend money every week on guidance if you have to work out like where you're going to eat. It shouldn't separate people like that. And people shouldn't have to pay for astrological guidance. If you are looking for advice, you should not be exploited for it, which is what I feel this rise in astrology is. It's simply turning it into something to gain economically from. It deviates far from that original principle of community advice and culturalism, so far from its, you know, beginnings deep in deep in our culture and deep in examining the stars, and that it's moved into this superficial money-making lifestyle choice that people have. And as a result of that, I beg you to oppose the motion.
Thank Orianna for her fine speech, and I'd now like to call upon Jules O'Toole to propose the motion to the House.
Hello, my lovelies. My name is Jules O'Toole and I'm an Aries. I'm also a family law student, which is handy because I come from a long line of families. I think star signs are important. I won't lie to you. I think that they can seriously predict how your life might turn out. I'm an Aries and I love goat's cheese. My best mate, she's a Pisces. She's pretty good at swimming. My ex-boyfriend was a Gemini and he was a two-faced little bitch. On a perhaps more serious note, my aunt was, her star sign, yeah, I can't remember the exact date, but she was a Cancer. And when you find out how she died, you know, that's not so funny, when she was crushed by a giant crab. Horoscopes are fun because they allow us to make snap decisions about people that we know absolutely nothing about. We can put people into 12 neat little categories and go about our lives. You're bossy, you're selfish, you're kind, you're caring. If you do that with any other characteristic or any other group, you'll end up being cancelled and UT's latest cover star. Given the rise of the far right and extremism in general, astrology is a pretty sweet deal. My boyfriend is an Aries, just like Harry Houdini, Michael D. Higgins, and Adolf Hitler. Unlike Houdini, he can't hide anything from me. He wishes he was half the man Miggledy he is, and I know this is going to hurt, but his facial hair is not a patch on Hitler's. I love hearing about people's birth charts. Like, the other thing is, though, how can you tell if someone has a birth chart? Do you have to walk up and say, hey, are you the kind of person that's into birth charts? Conveniently, with astrology, you don't have to do that. If someone has a birth chart, they'll fucking tell you. They won't shut up about it. I heard a great story a couple of weeks ago about Megan Fox from Transformers and how she snagged Machine Gun Kelly. Don't worry, hissed people. I don't know who he is either. It's not relevant to the story. So she sits him down and she does his full moon, sun, and Mars bars chart. And they discover that they're soulmates. They're eternal flames. Isn't that magical? Twin flames, isn't that nice? Now listen closely if you want to do something like this yourself. This will only work in one very, very specific circumstance. And that's if you look like Megan fucking Fox. Anyone else does that. If you phone up a guy's mother in the middle of the night and ask her what date he was expelled from her womb, you'll get called a psychopath and told to piss off. I always planned to conceive, right? So that my child ends up a Scorpio. I know what you're thinking. Bear with me, bear with me. The little bitch sign. To finally test nature versus nurture. I'll raise them up, I'll drag them up, you know, I can't commit to anything. And when they turn out to be little shits, well, it won't be my fault, will it? All I need is to catch a dick sometime in mid-January, hop off the pill for a few days, and I'll have solved astrology. And I'll have totally fucked up my life plan, but I will have proven a point, and that's all that matters. You know, when Maggie asked me to speak here last minute, I was a little bit worried that everyone would be making the same kind of jokes, anything really. You know, the usual, oh, Leos go, rawr, Scorpios are cunts. But I've got a fresh hot take, fresh hot take, Libras. Bear with me. According to my peer-reviewed research, you are all now my peers. Okay, your microphones are off, but that joke would have been funny and like good crowd interaction if they were on. Libras are the most common star sign going because they're drunkenly conceived by an ill-guided shag at Christmas. Therefore, now stay with me here, people are bastards. Hands up in the chat if you agree, people are bastards. Libras are the majority of people. Libras are bastards. I'm from the Phil, and where I come from, saying bastards repeatedly counts as humor. I don't know if that works here. Where I come from, bastards is just a funny word, so just roll with it. Libras are the majority of the population. They listen to Coldplay. Libras drink pumpkin spice lattes. Libra may result in Trump taking this election, or maybe not. I don't have any political opinions. The men in my life look after them for me. I'll take a POI now from any bastard, I mean Libra, who wants to take down that amazing analysis. Yes, you heard that, hissed people. Analysis. Little steward from the Phil can do BP talk. I share my star sign with Elton John, Sarah Jessica Parker, and Aretha Franklin. And though that means sweet, sweet fuck all, I'll take that with me to the grave. And I don't listen to Coldplay. Take that. I'll listen to Take That because Robbie Williams is an Aquarius and Gary Barlow is a Capricorn. Chris Martin is a Virgo rising, Pisces sun, and a Leo moon. Know thy enemy, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jules O'Toole, and I'm an Aries, holding on to the idea that that means absolutely fucking anything. Ladies and gentlemen, please don't take that away from me. My one way of identifying myself. Take it away and I'll just scream, I'm a Carrie, I'm a Carrie, I'm a Monica. And that's such a bitch-ass Libra thing to do. Thank you very much.
Thank Jules for her fine speech. And I'd now like to call upon Ben McConkey to oppose the motion.
I'm delighted.
Can everyone fill in their oratory returns? They're basically a way for us to judge the speakers, and then we give them an award at the end of the year. It's super, super important. So please do the form. It only takes a few seconds, and it's basically you just judging them, and it's all anonymous, so it's great. Sorry, Ben.
No, I'm delighted to be a Libra following that speech. You can see whether or not Jules' predictions and anticipations of me come true. So, hi everyone. My name's Ben McConkey, and I was a little bit scared to make this speech, I suppose. I think there's a lot of, as was very, very well highlighted by the proposition, really arguments that come from an awful place that oppose astrology. Those aren't the arguments that I wanted to make. I think it was something that I didn't know much about astrology before this motion. I spent a lot of time reading about it over the last 3 days, and thankfully I actually understand most of the jokes so far. But there's obviously a huge amount to it that I haven't got my head around yet. But yeah, a lot of it comes from toxic masculinity, archaic gender norms, classism, and even, as was pointed out by Orianna, how astrology relates to culture. And obviously you, as people who are attending a debate about astrology, are a lot more familiar with the dialogues around that topic than I am, but that was something that I found in my sort of brief reading about astrology beforehand. That's something I'm going to continue to try and veer away from. I'm going to, I guess in this speech, follow on from what Orianna was saying, specifically about, I guess, the relationship between, believe it or not, economics and astrology, which, as she quite pointed out, is quite dangerous. But one thing I wanted to clarify a little bit before we get into it. I think before I started reading about astrology, I had this conception that this debate would be, if you follow astrology but don't believe in it, then that's fine. And if you follow astrology but do believe in it, then that's not fine. And I think in hindsight that was a really unnuanced and I guess oversimplification of what the debate is, because I think, as has been quite correctly pointed out by both sides, this isn't really a debate about belief. I don't think that's the crux of it, because as was, I guess, highlighted by Cillian, there's lots of beliefs, and whether picking on one of them to give it a harder time than the other, it seems a bit unreasonable. So that's not where I think this debate really lies. I think we're more focusing on the role that astrology plays in our society. I've just realized I forgot to start my timer, so Julie, keep me on board here. So what role does astrology play in our society? So obviously, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems at its core a tool for self-reflection. Your horoscopes, your natal charts, and like the various other ways that you can engage with astrology help you examine different aspects of yourself, reflect on things in a different way, and maybe even like a level of self-inquisition, because you're able to get these suggestions you otherwise wouldn't have. But I think that's in a way probably what astrology looked like, 50 to 100 years ago, maybe even until the last 10 years. I think it looks sort of like private readings and consultations, and I'm sure that still happens today. And reading your charts in the newspaper, and there are a lot of bad things that come out of that. Obviously, like, I guess astrologers profiting from people's insecurities and selling them as certain narratives. But ultimately, I don't think that that's like much shadier than the stuff that businesses that we think are quite legitimate do all the time. So that's not really where I think the main harm lies. Astrology seems to look quite different from that now, though, as was raised. In our postmodern world, obviously, the way that we engage with astrology is online. As consumers of astrology, the experience is slightly different. Firstly, obviously, it's at our fingertips. We're not going to visit someone or buy a newspaper to get our readings. It's a lot less personal, which I think definitely plays into how we use it to self-reflect. But I'm sure you guys would know more about that than I would. I feel like this mitigates a lot of the benefits that come from the self-analysis that we get in astrology. Those are bad things that come out of it. But I think ultimately where the problem lies, as was highlighted, is more with the suppliers of astrology and what role they play in our lives. So I cannot stress how terrifying the amount of money that Wall Street investors are sort of putting into what they've called the mystical services market, which is actually quite a sinister way of putting it, given that it's kind of they're the ones who are really really underhanded. But they're framing it as if the market they're investing in is the one that we should be afraid of. I mean, there are tens of billions of dollars getting invested into this industry. Currently, as I guess was pointed out, the main players in the mystical services market are Sanctuary and CoStar and Pattern. They've only really emerged in the last 2 or 3 years. They primarily charge a subscription fee. I think Sanctuary charges $20 a month for its subscription. And it's not like these companies are little startups. They are they're financial behemoths with hundreds of millions of users. A New York Times article last year said that investors predicted that the mystical services market could be the size of the music streaming market in a few years' time. That's it's real, and it's sinister, and it's scary. But you might think, there's a lot of big businesses that provide services that you pay for, and that's true. I don't see why that in and of itself, like astrology being a big enterprise, makes it a bad thing. But I think there's another layer to that comes in that makes it a bit more sinister. These apps with their massive consumer bases, these companies are able to push their own narratives directly into the minds of users. Astrology readings have been found to push certain political beliefs and corporate narratives specifically within the US, promoting certain ideological frameworks and rhetoric in their own language, or even using these apps to advertise things. I think was touched on as well. For different astrological periods, or people with different signs, different whether it's I guess fashion labels, using that as a real marketing tool, and using that through the app as well. So it's a platform for behemoths in the mystical service market to influence people, tell them what to wear, how to act, what to listen to. And it's really quite haunting reading about this, because and there's some excellent articles in The Guardian, New York Times about it. It's almost like a Cambridge Analytica of astrology. And that made me really uncomfortable and uneasy even reading about it. I think this goes a layer deeper, though. There's obviously the common Marxist argument that was touched on by Orianna a little bit, that religion is the opiate of the masses, and now it is astrology instead. But not only is it an opiate, it's because it's not simply sedating you. I think it's actively harmful. What I mean by this is, I'm someone who thinks that that many, if not most, of the systems and institutions within our society are designed around inequality and designed to perpetuate that, self-perpetuate that inequality. And I think it's really important that my generation strives to change those systems and institutions, and that we create something sustainable and redistributive and empathetic even. What really scares me about the new venture capitalist macro form of astrology is that the message it is spreading is one that encourages and normalizes and psychologically embeds narratives about consumerism, and instead of encouraging us to play against the system, encourages us to say, I'm going to fix my life so that I can put it in. And this isn't just sort of my own interpretation of it. It's very much clear through advertising, and also through studies that have shown the various ideologies within some of the messages that this is true. And I kind of wish it wasn't, because it's slightly scary. And Facebook do this as well, and as do many social media platforms. And that's equally something that I think we should advertise to change. So yeah, telling a lot of consumers that they should endorse and work within a system that I feel they should try and break out of and change instead. And a lot of people are coming around to the opinion that we want some sort of system change. But when you look at the numbers of people paying for and using these mystical platforms, you can completely understand how so many people who might benefit from this system change don't really feel like it's necessary. So that's the argument I bring to the debate, and I think we've had an excellent debate as well. Definitely took the right angle on it that really touched on some of the cruxes of the argument. But yeah, astrology is no longer really a personal thing that allows us to self-reflect. It's unfortunately become a sinister capitalist tool. I urge you to oppose the motion.
We thank Ben for a fine speech, and we thank all the speakers, all the speakers for all their fine speeches. I love how this came into like a whole capitalist debate. But I would now like to put the question to the House. On the motion, this House welcomes the rise of astrology. Please vote aye if you propose, and vote nay if you oppose. It should be up on the screen for all the Zoom users to vote. While we're waiting for everyone to vote, I might quickly run through some of the upcoming events of the Society. Next week's debate is this House disagrees with your choice of library, which is going to be a very fun four-sided debate, whereby we have people who love the Berkeley, the Usher, the Lecky, and the Hamilton, because I do love the Hamilton, all arguing it out to see who has the best library. If you're interested in speaking in that debate or any debate, please feel free to talk to Maggie Larson. She's our CoreSec, and you can also check out our forums on our website. We also have Novice Training every Monday at 6:30 p.m. So this is basically beginners debating. It's a really good way to get to like develop your public speaking skills, to develop your kind of argument and structuring skills. And also they play Among Us afterwards. So it's a great way to meet new people and also then kill them afterwards. So yeah, if you're interested in that, please talk to Jack Williams, our DC, or any of his pros, Zeb, Daniela, or Hannah. They also are organizing Freshers Masters, which is a novice competition that the HIST is hosting on Sunday, the 15th of November. So the deadline for that is actually this evening at midnight. So please sign up. I'm going to post the form in the chat if you're interested. It should be a really fun way of like meeting new people and just getting used to debating. It's only open to basically new people for debating. Maggie, have everyone voted or?
Oh, indeed. Sorry.
Amazing, cool. So hopefully everyone can see that basically the motion has been carried. Delighted to see that there's so many people who are fans of astrology. Usually there's a chair address, but I am really an expert on astrology. What I will say is I actually like astrology because unlike all these other sort of personality tests, it never changes for me. For me, I always get weird, like sometimes I'm like a person, like a debater, sometimes I'm a challenger, sometimes I'm an innovator, like it never makes any sense, but I'm always going to be a Pisces, which I don't like, but at least I know I'm always going to be that. I like that certainty. But yeah, there's actually, that's my chair's address. Unless Eva would like to tell everyone their horoscopes, that was an option.
Oh God, no. Okay, Breed, first of all, it's for this many people, I have to charge you at least €50 each. No, kidding. Astrology is a wonderful spiritual guide. It is not meant to dictate your life. It is simply meant to be there. And you can, as I said, you can take it as seriously as you want. And it's ultimately just a fun thing to think about because it involves so many different things. And people touched on, I was super happy to hear people touched on moon signs and also like different retrogrades. And yes, the further you go into astrology, the more complicated it gets. And I think that's the beauty of it. So you can be super superficial, or you can be so heavily invested in it that it dictates your life. You can be in between whatever you want to be. And that's why I love it, because there's no commitment to astrology.
That's a very, very good like conclusion to the debate. Thank you so much. I also think astrology is very memeable. I hate to say it, but it is just objectively very memeable. There are also, actually, I forgot about a few events that I forgot to mention about just the HIS in the coming weeks. We have Maidens. Maidens is a competition that is open to anyone who's new to university debating. So if you're a fresher or if you're a fourth year who just wants to practice their public speaking, it's a great way to get involved. We still have rounds this week, and we have one final round next week. So if you're interested in that, please talk to Sean. He's the guy who gave the funny minutes at the beginning of the debate. Also, I'd like to thank EY for sponsoring our Maidens competition and for offering the Maidens Championship the Maidens Champion a paid professional opportunity this summer. So it really makes the competition more exciting, and we can't wait to be working with EY for the rest of the year. On top of that, we have Leinster Schools judging. So most Tuesdays, the HIS hosts a Leinster Schools competition for basically school children in like 4th to 6th year, sorry. It's a great way to get some practice judging, which is basically like a really important part of debating, and it both helps you like improve your analysis skills, but also improve your own speeches when you end up debating yourself. So if you're interested in that, please feel free to talk to Laura Egan, our librarian. She convenes the competition. And then finally, I'm delighted to be announcing this. The HIS is taking part in the TCD Movember campaign. So from growing mustaches to cycling 60 kilometers this month, we have a lot of fundraising going on. We also have two committee members who are Matthew and Oliver, who are actually dyeing their mustaches when we reach certain fundraising goals. So I think they just bleached their mustaches, and the next dye is orange, and I think the next dye after that is like red. They're going for the whole rainbow, which should be very exciting. So we'd love if you guys could donate if you have the money, and please donate to our team. We're competing with all other societies, so it's very exciting. You can find our team link in the chat. I just posted it there, but you can also find it on our like Facebook page and on our Instagram, in our Instagram bio. But yeah, I think that's everything that the HIST has in terms of upcoming events. It's a lot. I'm a bit out of breath, but I'm so delighted that everyone came this evening to watch a debate. Thank you again. And we said it was going to be a chill night, so we're not having any afters or anything like that. I hope everyone catches up on sleep and relax, and like I hope no one's getting too stressed out about the election. It should go well, okay? Like I'm optimistic. I don't know if that's is that because I'm a Pisces or something? I have no idea. But yeah, thank you again to all the speakers and to everyone who came. Really, really fabulous debate. But yeah, without further ado, I call this house adjourned.
Yeah, thank you again to all the speakers for a fantastic debate and interesting ideas about the stars and what they mean.
And how capitalism ruins everything. I think that's really the takeaway.
Yeah, so thanks very much, everyone, and good night.